We are now a few weeks into free agency, and needless to say, a lot has happened this past March. A lot of big moves in signings such as Jimmy G to the Raiders, the Carolina Panthers traded up to the #1 overall pick, Jets are still in pursuit of Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson still doesn't have a guaranteed contract, and Jalen Ramsey got traded to the Miami Dolphins. This past week, we covered a majority of the moves the Dolphins have made so far this offseason. And aside from the O-line and tight end positions that need filling, there is one other position the Dolphins could still make a move on, and that's acquiring another running back. They did just re-sign all 4 running backs from last season to new contracts for 2023, but they could easily make adjustments around Ahmed and Gaskins if they wanted to. If the Dolphins kept the same running backs for the 2023 season, who do you think would be the running back 1? Raheem Mostert or Jeff Wilson Jr.? Let me know down below in the comment section what you think. The question is, if the Dolphins did want to acquire another running back, who would they go for and what would make the most sense? There are a few options on the table, and it's likely they're still trying to figure things out, but let's break down a few possibilities. The first option, and the one that I would personally like to see happen, would be going out and acquiring Vikings running back Dalvin Cook. Cook signed a 5-year, $63 million deal that is fully guaranteed, and in 2023, Cook's contract is set to count for $14 million against the Vikings salary cap. There are talks about how Cook's best years are behind him, but I disagree. I think Cook joining the Dolphins would elevate this offense to a powerhouse that will give even the best defensive coordinators a hard time working around. The reason I think Cook would be the best option is because there are many elements about the Dolphins that will allow him to excel and heighten the team chemistry. Cook was born and raised in Miami, so this would bring him back to his core roots. He would be the clear running back 1 for the team with Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson Jr. behind him, but the biggest impact this would have would be reuniting him with his former Florida State teammate Jalen Ramsey. They are on opposite sides of the ball, but having that familiar face in the locker room really goes a long way when trying to establish a connection with your team, and this would make it even stronger for this roster. You already have Javon Holland and Vernon McKinley from Oregon playing together, Tua Tagovailoa and Jalen Waddle from Alabama, and the newest addition of Jalen Ramsey reunited with Dalvin Cook would be absolutely insane. There are a lot of people saying Jalen Ramsey had a pretty rough year and that he's fallen out of his prime, which I think is debatable, but a majority do think Dalvin Cook has taken a step back for the last 2 years. Cook had an incredible year in 2020 running for over 1,500 yards, but since then he hasn't been able to break over 12, which definitely is the main factor in why people think he is somewhat out of his prime now, but I still think that he is able to produce at a very high level. His touchdown count has dropped by a significant margin, and it does seem like people are writing him off a lot harder than they should be, but this is where I think him joining Miami might revitalize him. I suspect Jalen is going to make a big bounce back with this team next season, and if Cook were to join the Dolphins, I would almost expect the exact same thing to happen for him. There were conversations that took place a few weeks ago where the Dolphins did make an attempt to acquire Cook, but it's unclear if a deal was never struck or if the conversation was tabled for the time being. I personally don't think that Dalvin Cook is out of the picture for the Dolphins. I'd like to think that the discussion was just tabled for the time being. It might be something that they evaluate over the next couple of weeks after the draft, or maybe they're waiting till the Byron Jones money becomes available after June 1st. Their cap situation is projected to change with a few moves that still need to be made, such as the extension of Christian Wilkins, which Mike McDaniel did confirm and release information that they are close to finalizing a deal. Obviously, time will tell in this case, but I starting to think it's still fair to rule in the possibility that Dalvin Cook is still on the table for the Dolphins. The second move the Dolphins can make would be to draft a running back. More specifically, the Dolphins might be looking to draft Alabama running back Jahmyr Gibbs. Gibbs saw a gradual improvement from his 2021 to 2022 season, where he was able to run for an extra 180 yards compared to his 2021 season in 2022, along with 3 additional touchdowns. The only case where this situation becomes a reality is if Georgia tight end Darnell Washington is off the board before the Dolphins' first pick, which is number 52. It is difficult to tell if Washington won't be available by then, but if he isn't and Gibbs is still on the board, it's very possible they will go after him instead. The Dolphins really want to pick up Washington, and for good reason, but we'll just have to wait and see what happens on that end. As for the third option, there is still a very small chance of making a play for Derrick Henry. However, the only way I think this would end up happening is if Miami decides to offload a haul of future round picks, which I don't think is in McDaniel's interest. I don't think he wants to go through a situation where we just start tampering with teams again and just lose picks for silly reasons. Also, it's likely that they could acquire Cook at a much more affordable deal compared to Derrick Henry. The last option on the table would be the unknown to the media and us fans. You know, Chris Greer was able to pull Jalen Ramsey out of his hat like a bunny and said, surprise, look what I've got. We never know what these GMs are up to nowadays. There's always crazy moves that are being made in the offseason, moves that no one can predict. I mean, who saw the Carolina Panthers just going full swing and now all of a sudden they're going to pick their quarterback at number 1? So we'll wait and see. I mean, there's definitely a lot that can still unfold, but you know, I would personally like to see Dalvin Cook on the Miami Dolphins. I know some people would say, you know, maybe Derrick Henry would be, you know, better productivity, but I think for the chemistry aspect and what Dalvin Cook can still do, I think Dalvin Cook would just be a better fit for the team compared to Derrick Henry. Because right now, when defensive coordinators look at the Miami run game, I don't think they look at it and say like, oh, we don't need to worry about that, which is somewhat true. I mean, we don't have that dominant one running back, but if this offense did, then it would certainly change the narrative for how teams would view this Miami offense moving forward. The draft is in 24 days, and there's still a lot that can happen the next couple weeks before then and even after so. But if there's one thing that's clear, it's that the Miami Dolphins are not done just yet. Let me know what your thoughts are, and if you think the Dolphins are going to win the Super Bowl this year, be sure to smash that like and sub button. Turn notifications, that'd be super helpful. I appreciate you guys all watching. I'll see you in the next one.